Something that comes up from time to time when it comes to reviews is the delta between critics and the audience. Super Mario Galaxy is a perfect example, with Rotten Tomatoes showing a 42-89 split with a 47-point swing between them. Now, I didn't expect critics to like this film, and it's not surprising since the first Mario Brothers movie had a similar split. I've decided that since critics and audiences appear at loggerheads, it's time for a filmmaker perspective, and on top of that, a filmmaker with an excited 4-year-old in tow to answer if you should see the Super Mario Galaxy movie. I come from a family of lawyers, and lawyers get asked legal questions all the time, and the most likely response to any of these questions is inevitably, it depends. A similar logic applies here to the question of if Super Mario Galaxy is good or if you should see it. The easiest and quickest way to separate a lot of this is potential audience is to ask if you are bringing children with you when you go. If the answer is yes, then guardedly I would say go see it. Similarly, if you did not grow up playing Mario, I would say no. If you are a 6-year-old who has never played video games, this is going to be a painful watch for you. Again, in animation, this is nothing new. I don't imagine many 60-year-olds like Minions or the Gabby's Dollhouse movie, but what makes this particular movie such a lightning rod, I feel, is the expectation of what a hit it will be at the box office. It wouldn't be surprising if this was in the top 10 movies of the year. Some critics have definitely piled on when they see something they don't like that will be such a financial windfall. It's like calling balls and strikes against a team you hated growing up. It's the one thing they can do to potentially hinder the opening and in some way punish the people who brought you this thing. On the merits, the things that critics seem to take issue with are absolutely true. The story is lacking, character development is non existent, it moves really fast, and generally speaking, it seems to be more about having another Mario Brothers movie as soon as possible as opposed to giving us the best possible Mario Brothers movie. On the other hand, audiences are more than capable of making these decisions, and since the first one was such a success, you must think there is some bought-in goodwill for the sequel. No matter how you slice it, the end goal of making a movie for theaters is selling tickets to see it, and the audience are the ones who determine how many tickets you sell. I imagine there are some of you who are listening to me and thinking, why in the world was I, as a filmmaker, argue that flawed films are actually good as long as it makes money? Well, I'm not doing that, but I will elaborate. To simplify, let's preface that every movie in theaters would like to make its money back. Let's also say that filmmakers are trying to make the best movie they can, even when it looks like the movie is a purely commercial play. There is a balance between making money and making the best movie, and fewer films are able to do both. F1 was the highest grossing movie that also got nominated for Best Picture at 9. Sinners is the second highest, a possible winner at 19. One Battle After Another was 25. Between Now You See Me, Now You Don't, and Snow White. And there are questions if One Battle even made money at the end. So what can I add to this? Well, audiences don't want to make their own movies, so they still need us to make them. Critics like movies and like to talk about movies, but don't end up making movies either. So let's do the thing that filmmakers do and try and figure out what this movie would be. And I'll start shallow and dig deeper. If we live in a world where the Super Mario Brothers movie is released and now we are tasked with creating the sequel, I imagine we come into the project with some top line items. I think it was clear that corporate wants to expand the universe with new characters. They want more action. They want the whole thing bigger. So if we take those notes and come back with this movie, I think we succeeded in what was asked of us. The story could be better, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Let's say this is the world before Super Mario Brothers. No one has been cast. Maybe the movie is not with Illumination or Universal. It's a fresh slate. You still have to appease Nintendo, and they have been down this road before when Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo made a gritty live-action Mario Brothers perform so poorly it kept them out of movies for decades. So, they come with demands, and with good reason, because Mario and the universe of Nintendo characters have become valuable for them on a similar level as Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny. So, if we want to write this movie, it is probably going to be animation, in a style conducive to the world we know from the games. Mario and crew need to look like they do in the game. We don't need another press that Sonic got for its first trailer. Also, this movie needs to appeal to kids of all ages. Nintendo of any company that makes video game consoles leans in on games for children, so the movie needs to be PG at most. Finally, this movie must be safe for brand at all costs. If it goes wrong and the movie is a dud, it can't be irreparable harm to the characters. Mickey Mouse makes bad video games, but it doesn't hurt Mickey the character. Given all that, what movie are we making that is different from what we got? The story could be better, sure, but I'll get into that in a bit. Generally speaking, I don't have ambitions to make humongous films one day. First, I don't think I'm best suited for some big action movie, and second, I would much rather make movies that are more original works over IP. There are two things, though, I would consider, and the first is Voltron, and the second is The Legend of Zelda. Nintendo has signed off on a live-action Legend of Zelda movie. It's being filmed right now, and I've been doing my best to avoid anything about it. Before that news, I used to daydream what my Legend of Zelda movie would be. The problem is that it's really hard to convey the same things in the movie that you do in the game. I can't make a movie where you beat 4 shrines and do all the other quests and end up at the Battle of the Castle, because that movie would be 15 hours long. Breaking it up would be tough because people would want a conclusion in the theater, not 10 years and 5 movies later. So you have to tell the story differently. But what story could you tell? That wouldn't involve like this epic quest. It's the single toughest thing about video game adaptations of movies, because at a certain point, the satisfaction in the game comes from the gameplay before anything else. The story could be great, but watching Link try to solve puzzles in the water temple on the big screen is never going to be as fulfilling as figuring it out and conquering the obstacles yourself. The point being, with movies like Mario, it's hard to consider the path not taken and how maybe we got the best version possible of this movie at the end of the day. But really, what is Mario but a story for kids? The original game is some guy named Mario saving the princess from Bowser by overcoming obstacles and enemies. Other games along the way have added elements to flesh out the plot and make the gameplay richer, but there is no agenda for Mario. If you aren't making a kids movie, you wouldn't have to be way outside the box to figure a way in. Warner Brothers tried to bury Coyote v. Acme, which is Wile E. Coyote suing the Acme Corporation. There's no grand vision for the Roadrunner cartoons of old. Every scene is a coyote trying to catch that Roadrunner and failing. So we're settled on a straight kids movie. I'll tell you, my 4-year-old who loves Mario was able to understand the whole movie and engaged with what happened and had a good time at the end of it all. I guess I just don't understand where the disconnect is, because we have decided it's going to be a movie like this, that it's aimed at kids and it has to check certain boxes. I think this movie accomplished that. At the beginning, I said I was guarded about taking all kids to this, and this seems like a good place to bring this up. My major problem with the movie is that this feels like the pinnacle of the dark arts that have been capturing toddler brains on YouTube for a while now. If you are a parent who goes out of their way to keep their children from Cocomelon because you're worried about the pace, the colors, the movement, the lack of continuity and storytelling, this movie is the grown-up version of that. Though the one thing I will say in defense of the dark arts in this movie is that at the very least, they're trying to keep them on the same story for the length of a feature-length movie. Even though the short scenes bouncing back and forth between different places does feel very compilation-like if you're an avid YouTube Kids viewer. As a filmmaker and a father, I have for a long time tried to strategize the best way to show her certain things. And even when I went to take her to her first movie, which was Lilo and Stitch, she really enjoyed it since it was the animated movie that she knew, only in live action. No one else was happy with that choice, but she really was. I want to take her to the movies often, just like I went all the time as a kid. And as she grows, she will get into deeper things. But she really enjoyed herself, and I really enjoyed watching it with her. If I went to see it through my eyes alone, I would still get a sense of enjoyment out of it since I've been playing Mario all my life, but I would want her to see it because she could. There have been so few movies for young kids in the theaters the past couple of years, and I really try and find things to take her to. I can understand the differences, limits of different parents, but if your kid watches YouTube and you think they need their attention stretched a little bit, it might be worthwhile. When it comes to a critique of the actual movies on the merits, it's not that it's bad, it's just that it felt like we were working on a deadline and choices needed to be made. I think someone like me without kids would still enjoy it, but I could also see myself complaining about the lack of deeper story in this alternate child-free existence. I think the introduction of Yoshi and Star Fox are great additions, and of all the voice casts, the one who did the most of the heavy lifting were certainly Donald Glover as Yoshi and Benny Safdie as Bowser Jr. Jack Black as Bowser miniaturized for the first half of the movie, so the higher pitched effect on the voice dulled a lot of what you get from casting Jack Black, but the second half is more of the same Bowser from the first movie, minus a new serenade. The rest of the cast do a great job, though many of the voices are fairly close to the natural cadence of the actors playing them, but honestly, you don't need to hire someone to do a voice if you cast a voice you like from the beginning. In that vein, I thought Brie Larson as Rosalina was a welcome addition. Also, as a girl dad, I appreciate that Peach and Rosalina are just as strong and capable as Mario and Luigi, and saving them was predicated on their actions as well as the contribution of the voice. I'm starting to wonder if the introduction of characters like Donkey Kong in the first movie and Star Fox in this one were soft tests to see if they caught on in a way that would allow them to spin off the characters into their own franchise. The only reason it hits me more in this one is that Star Fox and Mario don't really cross into each other's worlds unless we were talking about Smash Brothers. At least Mario and Peach are in the original Donkey Kong game. I think there is a world where Universal/Nintendo thinks that Star Fox would make a compelling movie or a show, but don't want to do it unless the audience is introduced to the character in the movie universe and they really take off in popularity. One thing that I was kind of surprised that ended up in the film was the whole scene in basically a casino, but with video game iconography. I think making comparisons between the stimuli response of video games and of slot machines is not actually in the best interest of Nintendo. And its inclusion actually made me a little introspective about the video game time my daughter gets. While most of the time she plays games like Zelda and older versions of Mario, which I feel have some positive aspects, I definitely noticed some of that same slot machine reward system psychology in games like Mario Kart and Party. Having it so one for one on screen really made me think about limiting her time with the Switch more than I already have. And I don't think Nintendo wants anything in the movie that will make people use their products less. Let's slide down the flagpole from as high as we can because it's time for the leaderboard. As has been most of my point throughout this analysis, I think trying to rate this movie compared to the other movies we talk about is a largely fruitless gesture, but I will give it a score because I think when people ask me how I liked a movie, they want to know if they should see it. And my score, I feel, is often reflective of the excitement I would have for telling them about it. Because if I did a restaurant review channel and I went to all the finest places in LA and one week I reviewed McDonald's, it seems like unfair in some way. If you ask my daughter, though, she would much rather do McDonald's over Linden. So I'll give you my score, but don't think too hard about it because I'll tell you who should see it and who shouldn't see it. If I had to give Mario Brothers Galaxy a score, I would give it a 6.9. It's fun, you don't need to work hard, and if you have young kids, it feels like you should have already seen it. Small children are the sweet spot for this movie. If you are older and don't play video games or never have, I think this will feel like mainlining sweet tarts, and you should probably skip it. If you're a Nintendo fan, you'll enjoy it, but it might feel a little bit lacking. The Easter eggs are all enjoyable, and I think there is a way to watch it from that vein, which certain fans will really enjoy. Your answer to the question, how important is Mario to you, will have a lot to say about your reaction to this movie, but if you enjoyed the first, I think you'll enjoy the second. Thank you so much for tuning in. My fatherhood has pulled me from regular reviews. I have seen both The Bride and Project Hail Mary and intended on getting videos up for them, but I just ran out of time. But I think I have resolved some of those log jams. Just know that if you watch this channel, I appreciate you a ton, and I am so thankful you decided to stop by. Have a great day.